Mullen's recent sale of 22 vans for $308,000 in revenue doesn't seem to quite add up. Hi again, everyone. I hope you're all doing really well. So I wasn't planning on doing a video pre-market today, but I had a really interesting point raised in the comments of my previous one when I talked about obviously Mullen's recent update in the sale of 22 vans and for which they're going to receive $308,000. So a commenter actually pointed out to me, and I didn't pick up on this either, so it was a good observation, that based on the sale price of the vans for Mullen Automotive, which are $34,500 each, if you multiply it by 22, that's getting you closer to the $800,000 figure rather than $308,000. So there's something that doesn't quite add up about the figure that Mullen put in the revenue. Now, I have a few theories for why this can be, some a little bit more conspicuous than others. So I'm trying to run you through why it might be $308,000. Now, the first reason is probably what I'm hoping for anyway, is that that's perhaps a reflection of what Mullen's receiving in cash post, costs of goods sold or something like that. It might be like a net revenue figure that they're putting in out there for us, which if that's the case, it's quite a healthy margin that they're making on those sales. So that's probably the best case scenario. Like, obviously we don't know how much the cost of goods sold is for each of these vehicles. But yeah, that could be what it is. The other one that might be, the other idea which has popped in my head is more along the lines of perhaps Mullen's being a little bit fluffy or funny with their numbers. So with 22 vehicles, maybe they have 22 vehicles ready to be delivered, but not all of them are actually going to register as revenue, because the sales of these vehicles are all based on basically deposits being held, and then the deal has to be actually finalized by the customer who's going to receive the vehicle. So perhaps not all of those 22 vehicles have been able to been signed off and accepted by the person intending to purchase the vehicles. That could be a reason as well. So perhaps the 22 vehicles were ready for delivery this quarter, but perhaps revenue for all 22 is not necessarily being recognized this quarter. That's another theory I have there. And finally, the one other point I might make, and this is kind of connected to the first point I made, that Mullen Automotive, they are about to start recording revenue in their books, and I guess like every public company has its own ways of like working out what they consider revenue. Obviously, there are like principles which have to be used when identifying what is recognized as revenue, but perhaps we haven't quite seen what Mullen Automotive puts in as their revenue figure at the moment. So there could be something around with the definition of terms in their their accounting practice. Obviously, there's like the real definition of revenues, which is interesting because it does differ from country to country. Like the definition of revenue in America, from my understanding, is actually gross sales, whereas in Australia, for accounting, generally you wouldn't refer to it as gross sales. You wouldn't refer to it as revenue, you'd refer to it as gross sales. So it's kind of, there's a bit of a variation there in language too. So they can be a bit funny with the way companies define these terms. A couple of theories there, one of which is quite optimistic, one of which is kind of another case of Mullen maybe being a little bit fluffy with their numbers, and the other one being that maybe we don't quite understand what they are considering revenue right now. Anyway, so there's a bit of stuff to speculate there. If you've got any clearer thoughts on the matter, like, please share it in the comments below. Like, the comments are such a valuable place for getting other people's ideas and learning about what people think is going on with the business. It's a wealth of knowledge. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just, put out my thoughts on what's going on with the company. So anyway, like with the news of the sales yesterday, there was a little bit of a rebound in the stock with it clawing back 5%, but it's still massively down for the week. Currently in the pre-market, trade's looking rather flat for Mullen Automotive, so it'll be interesting to see how the week ends. Obviously next week there's a 4th of July holiday coming up, which will reduce the trading week. I'm not 100% sure on this, but like I think you guys just have the Tuesday off for the 4th of July in America, so the market will only be closed on the one day. It's my guess, but if I'm wrong, please put that in the comments below. I stuffed up last public holiday, so I don't want to kind of botched this one again. Anyway, share your thoughts in the comments with what you think's happening with Mullen, how we're going to go today, and if you've got any ideas that can clarify what's going on with that revenue figure, that would be really helpful. Yeah. Anyway, share it in the comments below. Till next time, everyone. May markets trade in your favor. Cheers.